Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson. I write the blog Stepping Aside at imsteppingaside.com. We're here once again for exploring, well, not exploring tarot. That's the series of exploring all my tarot decks on the blog. This is Rune and Tarot of the Day, or Tarot and Rune of the Day. I sort of bend toward runes. I probably should have named it that, Rune and Tarot, instead of Tarot and Rune, but whatever. So we're going to do this a little early today because we're going to fall another tree. We switched from cable to satellite dish for our television, and we did that in the winter before the leaves came on the cottonwood trees. And so now we've got some big cottonwood trees. We've already taken out one. We've been pruning a couple of others, which we'll take out ultimately, but then we've got this big one we have to do. We have to fall it across the pond. It's the only way it can go. So that'll be fun. But we want to do it before the wind gets going. Central Oregon is a very windy place. In fact, when we first got married, we lived in the valley, in the Portland area. And the lady we rented our house from was actually from here. And when we told her, gave our notice, she says, well, where are you moving? We told her we're moving to Central Oregon. She says, seriously? She says, I moved from there because of the wind. And, you know, we had bought a home over here, and it wasn't windy or anything when we did. We bought it in the wintertime, though. There was snow on the ground. So anyway, we had no idea. I mean, sometimes all there is wind. We put our dome greenhouse up in like 15-mile-an-hour winds with 25-mile-an-hour gusts. So we don't want to do that when we're cutting down a tree, especially the one the size of this cottonwood. It's huge. So anyway, right now we just get local channels. We're not getting any of the cable stuff, other than the news. We get that. But, so we'll count 13. 13. And we're still using the Rider-Waite deck. Oh, the Lovers. A major card. The first grouping of cards is the tarot is broken down into two groups. Well, three if you count court cards. You've got the major arcana, which is the soul archetype cards, and then you've got all the small cards, or the minor arcana. Those are the ones of the suits of the cups and the wands and the swords and the pentacles, and then sometimes they're called other things depending upon the deck. But and then you have the court cards, which are the kings and the queens and the princesses and the princes, or the pages and knights. Again, it just depends on the deck what they're called. But the Lovers is the sixth card of the major arcana, and I mean, you know, of course it can mean that, you know, two lovers, but typically this is about polarity within, at least how I see it. And because you've got, you know, the angel above and you've got the sun and all of that, you're looking down upon the purity of creation, basically. But that purity is a soul-centered purity. It can be duality, polarity, choice, integration, surrender. When you marry someone, you aren't surrendering yourself to them, but you're committing to something that is greater, you know, to a union that's greater than yourself. the other interesting part of this is that it can also be to see all sides of a situation. So when you see the Lovers, you need to consider the other point of view, I think. There's two sides to things. Well, in Kempo, we used to teach karate. There's three sides. You know, you've got the aggressor, the defender, and then you've got the bystander. So there's always a third perspective. And so really, you know, this should be maybe a I don't know. Well, anyway. So it's individuality, but it's how we express ourselves or see ourselves in other people. Course in Miracles talks a lot about that, where you're seeing the other side of self. When you see someone else, you're seeing source energy. We're all source energy. So basically, we're just seeing another cell in the body of source energy. And sometimes when you are experiencing something from someone, you think it's really coming from them, but maybe it's your perception about it. It's not really necessarily what they're doing, but it's how you see it. So this really, it's more than just, you know, a card of union. It's a union of polarity. It's a union of opposites. It's how we find ourselves in others. It's how we see ourselves in the world, basically. He's heading out to get to go to the pond where the tree is. It's right next to the hive, which is going to be fun. The Warriors just plugging along, doing their thing. Bees are surrounding all of the nukes we've got baited, so with any luck, we'll catch a swarm. Even if the Warrior swarms, we still got to put a box in it. So I don't know. We haven't looked under it yet to see what they're doing. At some point, you really have to add a box, or those suckers are going to swarm, which is fine. I like swarms. They're great. Bees you don't have to pay for. I'm also making a cannabis glycerate today. I have some cannabis glycerin that doesn't have any alcohol. I didn't do it with alcohol first. I just infused it for 24 hours on, keep warm in a crock pot. I just make it all soupy. I don't have a, you know, this amount and this amount kind of thing. I just decarb the bud in the oven in a turkey bag. I do that on 240 for 40 minutes. And then I crumble it up. I don't grind it. I crumble it. That just leaves too much inside the Vitamix. I don't like doing that. The resin stays inside, you know, clings to it's hard to get out. So I don't do it though. I just crumble it up. And then I just make it sort of soupy and let it sit, you know, if I do it that way. I don't really do it that way so much anymore. Cannabis actually strips the best with grain alcohol. To get the constituents off of it, the resins and all of it, it needs grain alcohol. Otherwise, you can use fat, so butter, whatever, or coconut oil. That's another one. So you can infuse bud into coconut oil the same way in a crock pot on low, or well, not low, but keep warm. Because I think on some crock pots, the keep warm is actually a little lower than the warm or the low. And that's what you want. So you don't want to burn it. You know, that destroys the medicine. So, but the glycerin I'm making, I had some alcohol tincture. And, you know, you can't just make grain alcohol tincture and then use it. You have to dilute it because, you know, you're talking almost 100% alcohol when you're done with it. And because it's 195 proof. So divide by 2 and that's how much alcohol you have, percentage of alcohol. Well, you've got over 90% alcohol there, over 95 or something, 97 point something. So you need to cut it. I mean, you know, at least, you know, 2/3 water. That stuff burns and it's poison. You don't want to ingest it. So you've got it. You're not done when you do tincture that way. You've got to dilute it. So you can do that with glycerin, or you can do it with water. If you do it with glycerin, you can either just do it, put it in, mix it up, shake it up, or you can infuse it together. And what I did here is I've got some well, it's a I think it's triple goddess. I think it's mostly sativa, but I'm not sure. Any cannabis now, any seeds you buy, they're all a blend. They're hybrids of sativa and indica. It might be mostly sativa. If I recall right, triple goddess is a pretty. It's not a huge fan leaf plant, so I think it's pretty tall. So it's probably sativa predominantly. But that, and then I've got this this glycerin tincture I did a while back, and so I'm mixing the two, cup of each in over low heat, and just let it let it all. You reduce it by half. It's like making a syrup. And so there's 2 cups of medium in there right now. When it's done, there'll be a cup. And you just let it sit there and let it evaporate into the air. You want to get the alcohol out of it. And you put a little heat to it, and that'll happen. Same way if you put alcohol tincture into a cup of tea, you just let it sit there. Alcohol is going to dissipate. You're not going to be drinking any alcohol. So, and besides, you're talking drops. You're not talking, a massive amount. It's just, but this is an interesting way to do it because you're getting, the potency of both kinds of medicines, infused together. So that's what's happening today. It's a little cloudy out there. We had a little bit of rain, yay, yesterday. So maybe we'll get some today. So the rune for today is Thurisaz. So Thurisaz is Thor's rune. It's got a lot of power. It's a water rune. So it can invoke change, it's protection. It's you can see it looks like a little hammer, really. And it's Molnir, which I probably butchered that. Sorry. I have Druid roots. People think when you're a witch, you have a religion. Not necessarily, You don't necessarily look at it that way. I don't. I suppose if I had a spiritual path, it'd be Druidry, but I'm not a formal, I didn't study it. It's just in my ancestry and, Bran the Blessed and all that. So I've always been drawn to runes, though. It's also the thorn. It's considered the thorn. You could kind of looks like that, like a thorn. The thing about Thurisaz is that it can be used to break through something. So if you're having a stuck issue, or if you're having something that's just not going anywhere for you, the energy of Thurisaz can help that break through whatever stuck thing you're in. If you've encountered an obstacle, it can help you push through that. If you need to, it's really good in weather magic. It can be used to dissipate storms or create them. But what it does in terms of the polarity is I think it gets you unstuck in one side or the other. Sometimes you can have planetary influences. If you've got a Mars day or something, maybe if Mars and Jupiter are hanging out together or whatever, you might have an expansive, energy day where you might be more apt to rise to the occasion, basically, maybe with anger or whatever. And so you basically then get stuck into a pattern. Instead of staying balanced and calm, you get stuck into one end of the spectrum or the other. And when you're dealing with a polarity card, And with Thurisaz, it's telling me that that you're kind of stuck in one or the other. You see it when you get a lot of toxic masculinity. You get it with you know, where one type of energy is more prevalent than the other. You could substitute projective energy for masculinity. We tend to put things down into masculine and feminine, but really what we're talking about is the quality of the energy that you're experiencing or expressing. And so with Thurisaz, self-control is a big deal, I think. And it isn't just about Thor swinging his hammer and creating havoc for everybody that's coming at him. It isn't just that. It's about the havoc within. Again, you know, these things can be without or they can be within. But I think that when you see the Lover's card, you're really talking about this internal dynamic that happens. And it isn't just, I don't know that you can really always define it down into projective or receptive energies. I think that you can look at any kind of an imbalance. We're seeing a lot of lying going on right now in our government, and nobody knows, you know, what the answer is. Well, I think we probably do, don't we? I mean, we know what's going on there. And if you don't, then you don't want to, I think. That's an interesting sideshow, isn't it? But basically what we're dealing with is either or right now. And we have to push through that. We have to push through the unwillingness to see what's going on in front of us. We don't want to, whatever our agenda is, you know, if it's about getting something for ourselves, then maybe we're not so willing to see it. And again, it's about, you know, you have that same polarity, service to self, service to others, that Law of One talks about, and other channel texts talk about, that we are of the Creator. We are the Creator. Everything you see, the Creator is all that is. And so, as such, we have to find a way to go forward as the Creator and to, you know, bring a blending that's more realistic, and protects the integrity of all people. When we lie to each other, when we don't express ourselves and live our lives in truth and in love and in unity with one another, when we don't find that balance, you know, we can either end up with a lot of aggression, because this can be about aggression, you know, or, you know, either from others or from the self expressing it to others. I think that's where we're at right now, and we have to find a way to integrate, you know, the dark and the light, the good and the bad. Of course, see, so those are all well, the dark and light isn't necessarily a judgment, but the good and the bad is. And so maybe we find that we just drop all of that, because if we don't find the integration that we need, then we're going to constantly have the battle within. I mean, have you ever been nasty to somebody? You've just snapped at somebody, you're in a bad mood or whatever, and you don't think, you just say something mean, and you don't mean it, you know, but it just came out, and you didn't keep that balance inside, and it just out it went, you know, and you feel, you know, hopefully you feel horrible. But what if you're somebody that instead of feeling horrible, you decide that that person deserved it somehow, that somehow that misery you just visited on someone, well, clearly they deserved it, because look who it is, you know. Well, you've lost everything if you've done that. that whole cognitive dissonance where we've decided that whatever we, horrible things we've done to someone else, somehow they deserve it. So it's okay. Don't got to worry. Well, yeah, you do. So think about that. Think about how you express, how you control, how you express yourself. What are you expressing yourself in a way that's hostile? Are you expressing yourself in a way that's loving? How are you doing that today? And because really how you do that is an expression of how you've integrated that polarity within. If you are too aggressive, too hostile, then maybe the projective or so-called masculine side. Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to say it's men versus women here. We all possess both sides of the coin within, and are we letting people walk on us? Maybe too receptive. Oh, there's male. I got to fix that. I don't like that. Or are we just being too pushy? And maybe that's the projective side. So we want to find a nice balance, where we're being respectful from, we're being respectful of other people, and yet at the same time having some self-respect as well. So I guess I need to go and check my glycerin and see how it's doing. I don't really smell it yet, so it must not be all that warm. It's got to get hot before it starts dissipating the alcohol. And then I need to go stop my husband from falling that huge tree without me. So in any event, maybe my tea is done too. So I think this is Thursday, isn't it? I think so. Anyway, happy Thursday, and remember to be observant of the balance within. And I'll see what I'm going to do tomorrow. I don't know. It's the long holiday, and we'll see what happens, but maybe I'll do one tomorrow. If I'm not going to do one though on Monday, I'm going to take that day off. So maybe I'll see you on Tuesday. If not, have a lovely holiday, and blessed be.